This is a video of my 1924 L.C. Smith & Brothers number 8. I got this machine a few months back off of eBay, and the reason I bought it is because it's an interesting machine. It's curious. It's got some parts rather that seem to be from a later machine, but there's also parts on it that seem to be from an earlier machine. The serial number, strangely enough, now you'll note this is a green secretarial front plate, but you've got black side plates. But it's funny though, when you take the plates off, they're green on the back. Kind of curious. But also this has L.C. Smith and Corona on the front here, on this front plate. But down here on the frame, even though it's very worn, you see that it says L.C. Smith and Brothers. Very, very curious. At the same time, I've noticed that these buttons here, normally on a closed machine, are smaller, about the same size as these tabulator buttons, but these are the same kind of as like my L.C. Smith 5 or an open frame 8. Even the ribbon key is like that. And it makes it very tricky to get this front frame off. And the reason when I got the machine, I took the front frame off, or the front plate off, because that's where the serial number is. If this was a true closed-in machine, the serial number would be back here on a machined boss, right about in this area here. But because this is an earlier machine, this is a 1924, the serial number is right behind this part of the frame here. Pretty curious, and it's interesting that this is a green front plate. Funny too is this space bar, it's kind of hard to get, but this space bar right here is the same red color as you would find underneath this black paint as you would find on a secretarial. Now I know this isn't a secretarial, but there are parts of a secretarial on this machine. Why, I don't know, but it's an interesting conversation piece. That's all I can really say about it. Also too, I noticed it after I bought it. These paper fingers do not match. This has a tall tab on this side, and this has a shorter tab. Not sure why. I mean, they look very similar. If you look at them quick, you'd say they're the same, but they're not. Another curious thing. Got the left-hand return lever on this machine. Very comfortable to use. This mechanism for changing the line spacing is a little trickier to use. I kind of just use my thumb and rotate it because it is knurled on the side, so you know. The nickel on this machine is in really nice shape. You got your paper release over here, and as I said, your carriage return and line space over here, carriage release. It's going to be a little tricky to show, but this is your variable line space, or I call it a fine adjustment. What you do is you push in and then you turn this knob and it locks it in place. Very useful device. Like on my L.C. Smith 5, you have your platen hold downs. These lock in place. There's a little notch cut out so that they lock in place on either side. Kind of hard to see, but you think you can see it there. You got another carriage release here, and you've got your finger hold here, so you can just move the carriage back over by hand instead of using the line space lever. It's a pretty clean machine overall. The decal on the paper table is in very nice shape. I've noticed though that these mid-20s L.C. Smiths have a slightly different decal. It's very slightly different than normal, but otherwise it's the same kind of decal. On the back, I have no tabulator stops. It's funny how it has a decimal tabulator, but the fingers that pop out, they're all the same. Like on a Remington 10, you have different heights for the decimal tabulator, for different tab stops, but L.C. Smith doesn't seem to do that, at least not to my knowledge. You've got your margin stops there and there. The line lock on this machine doesn't work. I don't know why. The funny thing is, if I if I hold the carriage up when it's at the margin stop at the right hand margin, if I hold the carriage up slightly, the keys will lock. But if I don't, it doesn't do anything. I don't know why that is, although it could be because the frame is slightly damaged. Not this frame, but the frame underneath. When I got the machine, the shift mechanism was down. I didn't realize it until I started using it. I noticed some of the keys were not quite right, and it was like, you know, what's going on here? So I was kind of, and then the keyboard was doing a bit of a wave on this side, and I didn't notice it until after, and I looked underneath, and the frame was cracked by the shift mechanism. So of course, you know, I wasn't too happy about that. It seems like these LC Smiths are a little bit fragile, because I had an LC Smith 5 that broke in shipping. It was the back frame, this piece, but on the other side, on the LC Smith 5 I bought. Luckily, this one, it was just the frame. I kind of super glued it in place. It works fine now, but the shift mechanism is stiff, but it does work. And the shift lock, like my LC Smith 5, doesn't fully go down. If you notice, it ever so slightly comes back up. So, but otherwise, it works very well. But it is a very loud machine. It's not as loud as the Underwood 5, but it's quite a bit louder than the LC Smith 5. We'll do a quick typing test. There you go. It's pretty quick though. These machines definitely are pretty quick, and they're fun to use. The only issue is I think this could be a little bit better designed. If you get used to it, it does work, and that's one thing. All this does is it's like a little cam. It just changes the height and where it hits the ratchet on there. Overall, a nice machine, pretty fast. That's the 1924 LC Smith & Brothers number 8.